The 2023 Porsche 911 Carrera T. As a previous 2020 Lexus LC500 owner, if I had to do the whole sports car purchasing thing all over again for 2023, what would I do? What would I choose? Well, Porsche recently came out with this new Carrera T. Is this something to consider? Well, let's go through it and let's talk about it. We'll even build this vehicle on the Porsche website and we'll see if this is good value in the Porsche lineup. So let's see what's new here. The T stands for Touring, which is kind of strange because this is one of their most sportiest models that they offer. So really the Carrera S should be called the T and this should be called the S, but I digress. The name doesn't really matter. I just thought I would let you know. As standard, the 911T will come with a 7-speed manual gearbox. However, an 8-speed PDK will be available with these models as well. The main highlight with the T, it's always been this way ever since the 991 generation, and there's probably been other model years of the 911 where they offered the T model, but this is supposed to be lightweight, and part of the experience is having the manual gearbox. However, I'm not the manual nut that I used to be, and also I've heard from multiple different sources that the way Porsche tunes their manual gearboxes, they have it set up primarily for track driving, and that's fine in theory, but the issue with that is you end up having these super long gear ratios. Like in second gear, you're pretty much maxing out at like 100 miles an hour, and that's just completely unusable and not really that much fun out on the street to have such tall gearing, right? So out on the street, I would almost even prefer having the PDK. I've almost come to that conclusion with most Porsche products. I would actually get the PDK for street driving. Anyway, with the 911T, the rear seats are going to be omitted, and we're also going to get the PASM sport suspension, which lowers the vehicle by 10 millimeters. That's going to come with the 911T. And another thing to note about the T model as well as the GTS models of the 911, they will have reduced insulation. So this is going to be a louder cabin space. So if that's going to annoy you, I would avoid the T as well as the GTS, and I would probably go with the Carrera S in my opinion. You're still getting that 6-cylinder boxer engine, but another thing to note, these newer generations of the 911, they are all turbocharged boxer 6 engines. That leads to incredible performance in a straight line. I consider these vehicles to be supercars. These Porsche 911s, they are incredibly capable, and not just in a straight line, but their handling performance, you can never max out these cars on the street. It is actually impossible. And what that leads to is a idiot-proof car. Like, you're never gonna crash a Porsche 911. I mean, it's not possible out on the street. I mean, that's just how over capable and just how high the limits are with these vehicles, and you have to respect that. You have to give credit where credit is due. These are, yeah, highly capable cars that if that's what you're looking for, you're gonna love these Porsche products. The 911T will also come with the Sport Chrono package as standard, along with the PASM suspension, as I already mentioned. And the rear axle steering system can also be optioned up with the 911T if you're interested in that. As standard, the wheel setup is going to be a 20-inch setup in the front, 21s in the rear, 245 wide tires in the front, and 305s in the rear. The car is going to be weighing in at 1,470 kilograms. They are saying that this is about 35 kilograms lighter than a 911 Carrera. So what is that, like 75 pounds? I mean, you know, let's be real here. You're not going to feel that. In the real world, driving on the street, you're not going to be noticing like an 80-pound difference. I mean, hell, do you notice a difference when you have a 200-pound friend in the passenger seat? I think not. So we don't live on a autocross circuit, right? We live in the real world. Minor bits of kilograms and pound savings, it's just not really that noticeable. You are going to be noticing that lack of insulation, I'll tell you that much. You'll also get a couple of logos and some exterior changes with the Carrera T. Nothing too crazy. It's still that classic 911 shape that you are used to. And on the interior, as standard, you're going to be getting that 4-way adjustable seat, that sports seat, but you can actually upgrade that for around $2,800 to the 18-way electric power adaptive sports seats, which I recommend getting because you get 4-way lumbar support, and that's just great, living with it in the real world. Once again, I have a very realistic, pragmatic approach to cars, even sports cars. I have a very realistic approach. I think about what it's like to live with the car. I think about financing, the pricing, how the vehicle is going to hold up long term with the resale value. These are things I take into consideration even with a sports car purchase, okay? Because not everyone is made of money here. These are still aspirational purchases. These are also, I totally understand this is all vanity. This is vain. This is not important. This does not matter to literally 95% of the planet. Seriously, it doesn't matter. This is not an important purchase. If you have a car at all, you are blessed. Hell, actually, forget a car. I mean, if you have food, clothes, and shelter, you have nothing to complain about in this world, okay? A 6-figure automobile, when you see stuff like this out on the road, you don't need to clench your cheeks and be filled with envy, okay? That's an unnecessary reaction when you see stuff like this, because most of the time when I see these vehicles out on the road, they are piloted by, let's just keep it real, very old people, probably in their 60s, maybe even in their 70s. They are all doing 10 miles an hour below the speed limit. I see them. I've seen everything from the base model all the way up to the Turbo S. Every last one of them. They're either doing the speed limit or they are doing under the speed limit. They're doing nothing with these cars. The internet goes nuts, but let's be honest, the internet is not buying these vehicles. So to own a product like this, like a deep 6-figure automobile, it requires a lot of sacrifice. It requires a lot of perseverance, getting through tough times, courage. It's not easy to, drive around in something like this, even to finance or to lease something like this, especially in today's society. It's very difficult. But the opposite is true. People who own stuff like this, they don't need to exhibit emulation or feeling like they're better than everyone else, because I'm sure there was a time in their life when a 6-figure automobile was a fairy tale to them, okay? It requires decades of saving and investing to be able to afford stuff like this, typically. And this is the reality of cars like this. Anyway, moving on from that, when I built a 911T, it came out to be around 125 to 130 grand. Is that good value? Honestly, I personally don't think so. I really think the 911 is a 150 to 160K car. That's really what I think it is. And let's be real, if you have 130 grand to drop on a new car, you have an extra 20, 30 grand to do it right and to get a better model. And that would be either the GTS or the Carrera S. Because like I mentioned, the GTS Porsche also lacks some insulation, so it's going to be a louder cabin space. So it's not going to be as daily driver friendly, if you will. Once again, I personally would just go with the PDK. I don't like having that long, tall gearing with the manual transmission. I just don't think that's that much fun. And let's be real, nobody's really going to be tracking these cars. Again, I'm going to get those comments from those unreasonable people that either lie that they have this car and they take it to a track, or you might actually have some legitimate people that really do take it to a track, but that's really far and few between. In the real world, I think most people would be better off with the PDK. It's lightning quick and you're probably going to get better fuel economy as well, which is another reason why I like the 911s and Porsche products in general. They're sports cars. They do get good real world fuel economy for what it is. But the Carrera S, well spec'd, that's also something to consider, because that also has a ton of power, but it also has a lot of the insulation and things that you would want, the thicker glass to help reduce a lot of the noise. Now, when we compare the performance, Carrera T has 379 horsepower, whereas a GTS has like 473 horsepower. We're talking about damn near 100 more horses and 100 more pounds-feet of torque on average. And a higher top speed, about 193 miles an hour for the GTS versus 181 miles an hour for the Carrera T. One thing I do like about both the GTS and the Carrera T is the fact that you get that sports exhaust as standard. That's cool to see. And another thing to note, I do like the aero kit package. I do like the spoiler on the back of these 911 cars. I would like that, and it's around a $2,000 option for the GTS, but it's like a $7,000 option on the Carrera T. You can also get that on the Carrera S as well, so I like that option. It's the cheapest on the GTS though, but once again, if you want the Carrera S for that refinement, go ahead. Anyway, my next point is I do like Porsche as a company. I like their dealership experience. I like their products. I like the way they drive. They're over capable. But me personally, I'm actually more interested in their daily drivers, like the Taycans, the Macans, and the Cayennes, surprisingly. That's actually what surprisingly has my attention the most. In an ideal world, I would rather have a Taycan GTS, the wagon version, and I would have a brand new 2023 cadmium orange LC500 with the orange interior space. That's personally what I would rather have. And when I spec'd out a Taycan GTS with the Burmeister or Burmester sound system, however you say that, it came out to be around 152 grand. That was pretty well spec'd. It was a gray car with red interior. So, you know, that and an LC at like 111 grand. I mean, that's like $263,000 worth of automobiles. Obviously, I'm in no position to be doing that. But I'm just saying in an ideal world, that's what I would prefer to have in my garage, because all Porsches drive amazing. You know, even the freaking Cayenne is an amazing driving car. You don't even have to buy their sports cars to have fun, especially since anything outside of the GT3 and the GT4 cars, you're getting a turbocharged engine. At that point, I might as well just have the EV Taycan. Just keeping it real with you. But there is the 718, the GTS models. You can have that naturally aspirated boxer engine with that, the 6-cylinder. However, that is a Cayman, that is a Boxster. If I'm gonna do a Porsche, I'd rather have the 911, but the GT3 unfortunately is a fairy tale. That car doesn't even exist in my eyes, because that's like the ones that are in stock, they're going for 300 grand. The Corvette Z06, also a complete fairy tale. Unless your first name starts with J and your last name is Leno, you're not going to be getting a Corvette Z06. No normal person is getting that car. I feel like the GTS or the Carrera T, you might have a better chance of getting an allocation for those. Same thing with like a Taycan GTS. I feel like you can actually make that one happen. So me personally, I'm more interested in that Taycan than I am in a 911. I think it looks cool. It's super practical. It's a full EV. I don't drive a lot, and I have a level 2 charger in my garage, so I can make an EV work for sure as a daily driver. Another thing, also a Camaro SS for like 40 to 50 grand is also an amazing value. Just, you know, once again, just keeping it real, those are also amazing cars. Amazing driving cars. Comes with like a 455 horsepower V8 engine. So, you know, just keeping it real for me, a Camaro and an LC500, these are really high up there for performance cars that are fun on a street. Once again, I want to emphasize street here. That's very important to understand and realize. So that's kind of where I stand. If I had to do it over again, the LC is significantly cheaper, has a significantly nicer interior space than a lot of these Porsche cars. The Porsches are well built, but they just basically have like a Mazda 3 interior space when you look at them. So that's nothing compared to the exquisite LC interior. That's kind of where I stand. And once you get closer to 180 grand, you also have the ability of buying an Audi R8 Coupe rear-wheel drive with that naturally aspirated V10 engine. It's also something to consider. So that's where I stand with all these sports cars, as far as brand new ones goes anyway. Let me know what you would do in the comment section. If you're a crazy 911 fanboy or fangirl, good for you. I mean, God bless. If that's your dream car, I hope you get it. Again, I'm fully aware that none of these vehicles matter. This is not important to most people in the world, but if you love driving, if you have the means, go ahead and get something like this. I'm sure you'll love it. Another thing I like about Porsche products is the crazy good resale value. So that's another advantage to 911s, and probably one of those naturally aspirated Boxsters and Caymans as well. So I'm just going to end there. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.